Hey guys, welcome to Something Like Therapy. On today's episode, Jess and I continue our discussion on our deconversion journey. We talk about some of the things that we experienced and saw during our time in the church and what ultimately led to us leaving that environment. So,
grab your favorite drink because it's a long one.
Definitely. Thank you again for coming, and without further ado, let's start the show. Hey guys, welcome back to Something Like Therapy. Good morning, or if it's nighttime for you, good evening, or if it's good middle of the night and you just can't sleep, whatever time it is that you're listening to this podcast, I hope you're having a good day. So, want to welcome you in. Jess and I are having kind of I won't put it on her, I'm having a slow start this morning, 2 espressos deep, and I still feel sluggish, but I'm going to give all the energy I have into the topic today.
We need all the energy.
Yeah. We're going to go ahead and continue on with part 2 of our deconversion topic. Like I mentioned last time, this is probably going to be a multi-part, episode or multi-part topic, just because there's a lot to go into, sharing, our experience and everything that, we've gone through and are continuing to go through, but then also just wanting to discuss, things that we've heard from people we're close to, things we've heard, from online and news articles and things like that. Just make it a roundabout
research that we've done.
Yeah, exactly. Roundabout conversation on it. So I know last time we kind of gave you guys a little bit of background onto, where we come from in regards to the church and religion in both of us growing up, and then how we as a family kind of got into the church and going into Christianity. And we dipped into a little bit of things that we began to see throughout the years that we were involved in the church. And, that's kind of where we're at into, what led us to begin our deconversion or our stepping away. So we want to just pick it up from there and go forward.
Yeah, so for those of you guys that are listening, welcome back and thank you for coming back. It was a little long one, and I'm just gonna say that you might want to grab a snack because this might be a little longer too. We'll try not to go into a rant or a tangent, and sharing our experiences, but it's a little hard because we have so much to tell, so much to say, but it's all coming obviously like based on our experience and the things that we saw and we witnessed and things that we also heard from other people, like my husband said. But we want to give you guys as much insight and information of, why we are where we are right now. And hopefully, our story can be understood a little bit more. Because I think right now there's a lot of misunderstandings or assumptions of why we left, or, maybe like, oh, well, it just, all of a sudden it just didn't work for you and you just decided to leave. And honestly, yeah, that really was, in the end, that's ultimately why we just said, hey, this just, it's not fitting right with our family. And, we're just going to go ahead and step back, step away.
And also too, again, and we mentioned it with last episode, if you are listening to this and if you know us or if you don't know us, just, thank you for hearing us out. Because again, I think I mentioned yesterday to Jess, this podcast, even though it's something like therapy for listeners, I think it is something like therapy for us too. It kind of gives us a safe environment to kind of release some things and get things off our chest. But again, thank you for listening, just because I know some that might see the title of deconversion and they just nope, skipping this. Don't want to hear nothing about this. Anyone that's, talking about this, it's just, blasphemous, or I don't want it to go through my ear holes. But no, what it really is this for a lot of people, and what we're understanding is just, everyone's story is different and everyone's story is unique. but it's something important for them. And I think as, whatever you identify as, whatever religion, we're all just people and we're all just humans. And I think that is the thing that is most important, is that we have compassion and sympathy and empathy for people around us, to hear their story, to hear where they're coming from. And I think that should be the core foundation for everyone. So again, thank you guys for hearing our story, our experience.
Everyone's story matters. Like, everyone's story says something and tells something about them, so we definitely appreciate, for those of you that are listening, because we know that this is not only something hard for us to share, but it's very personal and intimate, but also, like Derick said, it really is healing for us. Like, for me, last week I didn't realize how emotional I got, and I was like, oh man, like, I needed to talk about this. I needed to express myself, and I needed to say this, out loud, to process it. And it was very helpful for me. So,
and this is something too, like, it's not, this is everything. This is our life. These are decisions that we're making that, according to how we believed, won't just affect us, in this lifetime or whatever this is, but like for eternity. So, if the magnitude of that kind of decision making isn't just something like, like what I'm saying is that we're not just doing this topic because we Googled, like, what's the number one topics to talk about on a podcast to get viewers. Like, no, that has nothing to do with it. This is something that we've decided as individuals, as a married couple, as a family. And it's, shaken the foundation of who we are. So it's not something that we just decided lightly.
And this isn't a dinner table topic at all.
Exactly, yeah. So,
not in our dinner table.
Yeah.
Well, our home, yes. But if we are, at somebody else's home, family member, friend, it's something that we do. I don't want to say we tiptoe, but we are very cautious of bringing it up, and because we want to be mindful.
Exactly.
Mindful of others' feelings and beliefs. So.
Of course.
All right. So I made some bullet points just because I'm like, I feel like last time we talked a lot about what we went through, but not really in detail. So I just want to give you guys a little bit of a trigger warning. There is some things that we are going to talk about that are pretty serious, that we not only, seen for ourselves, what we heard around, a couple of different churches that we went to, and they are pretty serious topics, but I think it's important to talk about because this is something that is happening not just in the church that we went to, but in many, many different churches. And it's what eventually leads a lot of people to questioning their beliefs and questioning just where, what they're dedicating their life to. So, because that's really what it is. You really are, as far as for Derick and I, when we decided to go just full on, head on into Christianity and ministry, and and be the servants that we felt like we needed to be, we just gave it our all. That's why it's a little upsetting when you hear people say, well, you were never really a real Christian. Do you understand the level of commitment and dedication and how much we and it's nobody else's fault, or we don't blame anybody else for how much we gave up for the church. I think it's some of the things we gave up needed to be removed from our lives, period. But people don't understand, and how when you go full on into something that you are just believing wholeheartedly, when we left the church, we literally left with nothing. We left with nothing, nobody, and it was very lonely, and it was heartbreaking. And for people to say well, you weren't really a real Christian, it's very upsetting. So, but anyhow, I wanted to start it with talking about what ultimately led us to leaving. We had, like we mentioned, we have two two special needs kids, and we have an older son also, which he was at the time kind of having his own struggles. We had an amazing experience with our oldest. He received amazing support. He created some amazing friendships and developed some amazing connections. And honestly, I mean, that's really what kind of kept us going back. Because we started to see some things like we weren't agreeing with, and we're like, that doesn't look right. Like, oh, why are these people acting like this? And this seems kind of like, double-sided. But it was our son's journey and how much he was growing that kept us going back. And it really led us to turning the blind eye in other areas. And like we said, we began to leave our children behind because there wasn't a ministry that was consistent for them for special needs. So what ended up happening is they were having pretty much anyone and anyone that was willing to lead that ministry, just come in and take over. There wasn't a lot of willing participants, though. My husband and I, Derick and I, we ended up doing it for a little bit, but we let them know, like, hey, this particular ministry needs to be taken over by someone that is qualified, someone that knows what to do when an emergency comes up. There was a couple of times we were there and we were like, what in the hell are we doing? Like, these kids are out of control. We have no training, and really, I just want to say that I'm not even sure, like, they were very concerned about the safety part of it, and it was just not a very good system that they had going on when it came to special needs.
Yeah. And you can't, as an organization, you can't promote that you have a ministry or whatever you want to call it, a class or whatever for special needs, unless you have someone that is qualified,
Right.
Either certified, has a degree, has the training to handle individuals with those certain behaviors. And again, like Jess said, it was kind of just like, hey, who wants to do it today? You want to do it? Cool. Mm-hmm. Get in there. I mean, there was times when, there would be an individual that was same age or maybe a year older than my son at the time, our oldest. So, like a teenager maybe, or a very young adult handling the program, handling the class for the day. And, that's kind of what really set Jess and I off into like, hey, this is not okay. We need to kind of make this or bring this up to see if it can get fixed and resolved. So.
Right. So there was a particular situation where we were picking up our boys, and I saw something a little suspicious. And when I brought it up to the leader of the ministry, now this is the children's pastors, we were completely dismissed. We were told that if we were so worried about their safety, then maybe we should be the ones leading the program. Kind of like, if you're worried about it, then do something about it.
Why don't you do it then?
Why don't you do it? And we were constantly being pushed to, and at one point we did like, okay, let's do this. Let's try to commit to it. And obviously we have special needs kids. This is important to us. This means something. But it was never truly our passion. Our passion had always been marriage ministry. It had always been working with other couples, people that were going through similar things that we were going through as far as like marriage and family. But special needs ministry was never our heart. And we were always being pushed in one way or another, like, well, you just don't know yet. Like, but you don't realize how much the Lord's calling you to this. Like, it was so much freaking manipulation. It was disgusting. So when this particular situation, that it was a serious, very serious situation, if it would have happened, I can't even imagine. But I obviously we were concerned parents, and something didn't seem right. One of our boys is nonverbal. The other one, his communication is kind of just, you ask him a question and it can just turn
all over the place.
It's all over the place. So you can't really get facts from him, or just how things went. It's very hard to get it from him. So we approached them and we were completely dismissed. And it was very hurtful. It was very painful, because these were not only, the children's pastors that we should have been able to approach with any of our concerns, but they were supposedly close friends of ours. And we were just made feel as if we were just bothering them. It was an uncomfortable topic, so they weren't really trying to deal with it. And at this point, we felt like, well, we're not going to leave our kids home anymore. That's not going to happen. But we can't, they're not safe here. So what do we do? What are our choices? So we really started to kind of, I think we ended up taking a couple of weeks off. We didn't go to church. And then, we started to really question, what are we doing there? What's the point? We're giving so much of our time. We're dedicating so much to the church and to the pastors, and we felt like we were being obedient to God, to the calling that He had over our life, and we were kind of getting shit on. Like, I mean, there's no other way to put it. Like, every time we wanted to do something with the church, like, it was like the doors closed because we didn't have anywhere for our children to be safe.
I mean, and honestly, like, hearing it every time we talk about this, or when we explain it to family or friends, even hearing it myself, it's just like, it can be kind of taken as like, okay, so you're just gonna like walk away from a church just because you're offended. Like, that's a human thing. People get offended, but you find solutions. You work with people, and it's like, it's not just being offended and like, oh, like, we were just dismissed and we hate the church. No, it's a matter of really, like, if, like Jess mentioned earlier, like those people that kind of dismissed us, like, not only were they pastors, but they were like good friends. If it's the church, we're not all just good friends. We are all brothers and sisters, right? That is our family. That's like going to your brother or going to your father and them not hearing or taking seriously your concerns about your children. So it's like something that really, like, how am I supposed to believe that we're all family here when no one's doing something that, is important, that is affecting me? And it's not just our story. We've heard from other people that have taken issues that, personal things that they are going through, or that are really, that weigh a lot on their heart, taking it to different pastors and just being dismissed, just being where the pastor's like, I'm really busy, so I'm just going to go ahead and pass you off over to someone, and you meet with them, and then you guys pray it out. Like,
or they send them to someone that is not qualified to deal with anything that they're they're trying to get help for. And that's just another way of being dismissed. They're not taking the time to give them the correct resources, or give them some, I don't know, even if, like, for me it's like, okay, even if you don't have the answers, give me a freaking phone number to an outside source. Who cares if it's not Christian? But at least we know, hey, we're sending you to a place where they're going to give you the tools that you really, really need right now. Whoa. Right now, you don't need some BS scripture. You need real life help. You have real issues that need attention, but they don't want you to leave their bubble.
Yeah, there would be the last thing that pastors or anyone involved in the church would willingly or actively send someone to a non-Christian therapist or non-Christian psychiatrist. I mean, don't get me wrong. I did, have conversations with, some pastors where they're like, no, we truly believe that it should be a mixture of scripture and, medical science. And at least that's at least they were on the right track there. But for the most part, the thinking in the church, or thinking with Christians, is everything is fixed through scripture. Everything is fixed through God. Everything is fixed through prayer. you don't need medication, you don't need therapy. All those are secular ways of thinking, and medical science is just wrong, and I mean, it sounds insane. Like if you're not from the church, or maybe you're listening and you're not involved in Christianity or with the church, you would think like, why would people think like that? There's no way people would think that medical science is completely wrong. Like, no, there is some people that truly like are so deep in it that they're like everything can be fixed through prayer, and it's like. Mm-hmm. It should be like if you want to pray, then that's fine. But if you're going through something, you should definitely seek professional help. But yeah, that's
Yeah, and there was the beginning of our situation was kind of what led us, like kind of took us into a whole rabbit hole of finding out different things about different people. I was early on, I think maybe about a year into us being in marriage ministry. There was a particular couple that showed up, and the husband was struggling with some depression, and they were both seeing, I believe, the counselors at the church, the marriage counselors. And unfortunately, this individual, took his own life. And it was very heartbreaking. It was very hard on the pastors because they were making a connection with them. And I know they were trying to walk with them and lead them back into ministry and whatnot. But that was, for me, one of the first signs that I saw that they had no business. They had no business treating this individual or really not treating him at all. Because even though they were offering, this couple or this individual a space to talk and to process, he should have immediately been referred to professional intense help. And it was never heard that that's what was done. And the only reason why we knew this was because this is when we started the counseling, and we started the training, and we had a little bit of inside information where we knew, kind of how the whole thing went. And that's when I knew it's like this is dangerous. What they're doing is dangerous, and they're not offering people the proper help. Even, like we had a situation where we counseled a couple, and after we were done, even though we had really good conversation with them, I was like, man, like these are people with real issues and real problems, and we're not equipped to be helping them. Because if this couple ends up in divorce, then dang, like we're gonna feel like crap because we're feel like, man, we didn't help them, we didn't fix them. But and that's kind of in a way, the pressure that you take on when you decide to go into a ministry like that. Like we have to help them. We have to be there for them. And now it becomes a personal project, and you're not really thinking about this individual's real problems. And then really it's going to cloud your judgment. And I think that's what happened with a lot of these people. So anyways, that was another situation where we were just like, this is just not right. And more we started to hear different things as we shared. Actually, we shared only with a couple of people our experience with our what happened with one of our boys. And a couple of people were kind of like, well, yeah, that's kind of heard around the church. There is a couple of people that probably shouldn't be around children. But there are in very close proximity of children. I mean, these are serious issues that were coming up. And we came to find out that all the pastors were aware of this, and nothing was being done.
Yeah, I mean...
what do you do with that?
Exactly. And I mean, I'm sure no matter, like, if you're a part of some sort of organization or club or, wherever you work, the longer you're there, you're going to find more of the behind the scenes of like, oh, that's how things really are. Like, oh, that's how things get done. Every organization has its like secrets and stuff. But it shouldn't be for the establishment that represents the creator of the universe that there is similar or has the same tendencies as any other organization, Girl Scouts, police department, whatever you want. It shouldn't. It should be elevated, right? And I understand you might say like people are people, they do their best, and no one is Jesus. And I completely understand that. There's gonna be issues in every aspect of humanity, of society. But when you just blatantly see that things get swept under the rug, or you just don't talk about that, you don't bring it up, it really, those are the seeds that get planted, that begin to grow and begin to, you wake up and you question. It's Sunday morning,
Yeah.
like, am I going to go to church when I know everything that's wrong? Am I going to listen to a person? I'm not even going to call them a pastor, just a person, another human, stand at the podium and speak, knowing things I know about them. It's hard, guys. Like, you can't put your faith, like Jess said, this is something you're not just dedicating your time to. It isn't your son's little league team. This is your life. This is your life on this time frame, on this earth, and that what you're believing in happens when you die and when your children die, and for eternity. You're putting all of your heart, soul, and time and energy into this belief, knowing it's flawed. And that's what, when we talk about, like, the Bible, it's like the Bible is infallible, right? It's like, because once you find that there's one tiny aspect of the word of God that is not correct or not true, or it is some doubt, then all of it crumbles, right? When there's a crack in a foundation, the whole foundation will eventually come down. So those are the things that we went through with different ministries, with different pastors, with different people we met in the church, finding these things out that are very alarming and discerning. And then, like, those were the cracks that began to mess with our foundation of the church, mess with our foundation of Christianity as an organized religion, which then led us to just want to, like, okay, let me really, like, let me not read the Bible, let me not research God and Jesus Christ and all of it with the church goggles. Let me remove these as a human, free thinking person and really begin to ask myself, is this completely 100% true, where there's no, it's like when you're in trial, without a reasonable doubt, they have to decide. And it's like, there's a lot of doubt when you begin. And then whenever you come into, like, well, this doesn't make sense. So what about this? What about this? What's the response? Well, you just have to have faith. Everywhere there's a gap, everywhere there's a hole that something doesn't make sense, just fill it in with faith dirt, and then pat it down to make your foundation more secure.
And we wouldn't take that approach towards anything else, right? Like, in any other situation, let's say you go buy a car, and you know that there is a crack in the engine somewhere, and eventually that car is just gonna take a crap, right? Like, would you just buy it? With
and that's
faith,
a car
and
that
hoping,
isn't your religion, your
life
viewpoint,
what you're gonna base your whole life on. You wouldn't buy that car knowing that there's a crack somewhere, because eventually it's gonna take a crap on you. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna take you as far as your hope it's gonna take you, right? So we I didn't want to go into this, but we're going into it. But we really couldn't turn a blind eye anymore. I can understand ignorance. If you're just completely ignorant and oblivious to anything that's going on, right? So this is why we couldn't keep going, because to me, I found out these pastors knew exactly what was going on. They knew, some of these pastors we found out had fake diplomas, had, like, it was so much. And I hate that I'm bashing the church this way right now, because these people mean a lot to me, and they meant a lot to me. But, or I want to say they meant a lot. I mean, I will always hold, love in my heart for them, but it is what it is. There's only so much that you can turn a blind eye to. But, so we started to see that these people were every day showing up, knowing that there was a lot of things that they shouldn't be dismissing. There was a lot of things that they shouldn't be ignoring. So for us to show up and sit and listen to these individuals as if they were the know-all, we couldn't do it anymore. Because to me, it wasn't that they were they were oblivious to what was happening, or they were just completely ignorant to what was happening. They knew exactly what was happening every single day in their church. They knew what was going on, and they were doing absolutely nothing about it. They were hiding behind grace. They were hiding behind God will take care of it. They were just hiding. They were just hiding, and they were pretending as if nothing was happening. And what was happening meanwhile they were playing stupid was people were getting hurt left and right. People were leaving, and then they were shaming them for leaving. So we couldn't stand behind this anymore. And at that point, yes, we did start questioning, well, and I guess we can now go into, we spent a little longer than we wanted to on this bullet point, but we can start going into, our process and our journey into home church. Because when we decided to finally leave, and we covered this in the last episode, we were pretty much told, you guys don't know what the hell you're doing, and you'll be back. Oh, okay. So we decided to leave.
And you even mentioned how one pastor, when we said that, it's just through, and this was when we were still active in prayer and active in
I think
reading
our faith
scripture.
was stronger than ever.
Like we were very much in our word, very much in our prayer, and come to a pastor saying, we just feel that God is speaking to us, telling us that where the situation or the environment that we're in the church, that it's not where we need to be, and that we're being called to a different setting, to somewhere else. If that is, going out into the streets, going out into a home church, whatever it looks like, we just know that this isn't where it's at. And for that pastor to just not take the approach of grace and, as they say, and all that. No, it was more like offense that, so we're not good enough. Our church isn't good enough. Well, joke's on you, because if that's what you heard, then you didn't hear from God. Because if you would have heard from God, it would have come through us. We would have let you know when it's time to move on. So I can't really release you from this. But if you want to go, then go ahead. What the fuck kind of response is that? Like, seriously, dude, why would you tell someone that? Why wouldn't you, even if you need to speak to them more, or even if you need to bring in another pastor to let's really get down to the root of it? No, it's just like, you don't know what you're talking about, but if you want to go, then go. And make sure you delete yourself from all social media of the church, because we don't want, and any people involved in the church, because we don't want your way of thinking beginning to seep out. So it's just, and that kind of right there, I mean, I kind of look back on it now.
I don't know how we went back to church.
Why did I even go back to any church setting?
Yeah.
If I can get that from someone who's, considered a pastor and considered called to be a shepherd, then all of it has to be bullshit, right?
Yeah. And then, even then we shared, now this is the second time, or the second time, because the last time we brought up the whole special needs ministry, we brought it up to the main pastor, and he was like, I didn't know that was going on. Bullshit. You knew. We had meetings with the children's pastor. You knew exactly what was going on the whole time. But anyways, I digress.
And the thing with that, really quick, the thing with that is that going back to just like, bringing up issues with that special needs ministry, bringing up things that we heard about, in different ministries and stuff, about people that are as, considered leaders that really shouldn't be in a leadership role. All these things, it's like, they won't get addressed. And this is why it goes back to like the church is a business. I don't care what you say, it is a business. They really, lead pastors and everything, the council, they really look at it like, okay, we need to address this because this is affecting something that affects a majority of the church. If it's a ministry that has a lot of members in there and it's really going to like affect a lot of people, then we need to focus on that. Our little special needs ministry, maybe there's a handful of kids in there. We put them already in the back of the church in a bungalow. Yeah, just whatever. We don't really need to address. We don't have the time or the resources right now. But heaven forbid if it was like something like, I don't know, marriage, or, the next gen, or whatever the case, whatever the ones that had a lot of numbers, it would be addressed immediately, because again, it's a business and we want to keep the business running smoothly. That is something, again, that really opened our eyes to like how this whole thing works. There is no way that if I could sit down with God, Jesus himself, and be like, Father, is this how you wanted your church to be? Is this how it should be run? I doubt he says, well, yeah, you got to understand, if it's something that affects a lot of the church, we got to, address that first. Like, it's just, it
You got to
really,
take it for the team.
yeah, and like, again, the whole thing about being called to certain things, there were pastors that were like in roles, they were in certain ministries where it's like, this isn't really our calling, but we just got to put in our time. Put in
Oh,
our time. What are we like rolling up trying to go up the next rung of the ladder of
yeah.
the business here? Like, what are we doing? This isn't how it should be run.
Right. And
Which that kind of led us to going, kind of segue to the home church, because it's
yeah.
like, okay, maybe because the church is such a big thing and it has to like make everyone happy. I mean, we have thousands of members here at this church. Let's go to a smaller setting. Let's get down to the real grassroots of how people were called in Acts to just meet in their homes, small groups. And let's see if we get a different response here. Like, we didn't just give up right away. We were really searching. We wanted to make it work. We felt God was calling us to the church because, the church on earth is a biggest part of everything of Christianity, and we wanted to make it work. So we found a home setting or a home church
Yeah.
setting.
And we had actually experienced like a smaller groups. We used to go to this amazing worship experience called Gather, and oh my god, like I think I would still go with them because like they were just so real, so their heart was just so pure, and that was amazing to me. Just how they allowed people just to be, to share, to express. There was no expectation, and
I mean, yeah, definitely, like,
we
that.
fell in love with that.
Yeah, I loved it because it was, very therapeutic. Because, like Jess said, you could go there and just, it was just open mic. You want to get up there, whatever you want to talk about. If you want to read scripture, you can. If you want to sing a worship song, you can. If you want to just talk about what you're going through, you can. And that is, well, guys, that's therapy.
Yeah.
That is what a safe environment looks like. And the fact, they incorporated, obviously, again, worship music and the Holy Spirit and everything. Whatever you need to release whatever it is you're feeling, your inner, strife and your inner demons, if it needs to be in that kind of a setting where scripture's read and songs are sung about God, then so be it. If you need to be in whatever setting, a gym setting or a heavy metal concert setting, whatever it is to get it out, you need to get it out. And that's why I respected that. I respected Gather and the people that did that, because they allowed that safe setting. They allowed
Yeah.
that safe environment for people to be vulnerable. Because sometimes in a bigger church or even like in a home church, they're like, oh no, you can be vulnerable, you can release it, but just don't say certain things, and you have to say it in a certain way and be in a certain look a certain way, where it's like,
And
what
you
if,
still get the shitty looks from people.
yeah,
You still get the looks like, why would you say that?
yeah, like, I guess I just have to have grace for you, like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry that I didn't know this convert or whatever. I didn't know that what I'm going through was like, I don't talk about that. Like, we talk about everything here, but not that stuff. You sicko, that's weird stuff. Don't talk about that.
Yeah. But we most definitely, oh, and I just want to say it's, Derek and I were having this conversation the other day, because I still have a couple of things around my home that have scripture. And, I thought about it. I was like, why do I still have that? But I honestly, because it's not so much that I have faith of where it's coming from. It's more of just what those words mean to me. I think the scriptures like Corinthians, something like place your mind on things above. I probably butchered that, but or set your mind on things above. And to me, that is just a reminder to not be so focused on the crappy things that are going on in life, and set your mind on things that you are grateful for. So to me, I'm in a place where I can see scripture, and I can take whatever value it does have. I can, whatever meaning it had to me at one point, and I take it back to that good place or that good feeling that I got from it. But I don't have to necessarily associate it to the Bible so much. I hope that makes sense, because
Yeah.
like you said, like, if there's times we've gone to concerts and it just could be a crazy concert, And you just get so emotional because it takes you back to a time or a place where you experience something joyful and healing. That's kind of how I look at it now. There's times that, especially with Gather, I loved that it was a couple that led it, and they were just so, there was no expectations from them. And they were just themselves. And that, to me, if there is a God, in which I do believe there is, that is the heart of God. It's not this like, you need to follow this. And even though, yes, I know that they were Bible believers. I know that. We know that. But there was the way they carried, like, their heart was so different from a church. Yeah. So that led us to, like, hey, maybe we go to something smaller. And we did. We went to a family member of ours, and they had a home church, and I loved it. I think that their heart was real, because we know them personally, and they didn't hide their flaws. They didn't hide behind because they also had left the church. So I appreciated that. But eventually, we couldn't really keep attending there. And again, it was more because of our children and stuff. But we ended up in another home church where we were referred by a couple of people. And, no matter what, and I asked myself this question: why do these people or social groups or whatever end up going back to the system that they ran away from? Like, I was having a hard time understanding that. But I realize now it's because they all have the same manual. Like, they all have the same book with the same rules. And it's very hard to pull away from that. Once you have a program that has been downloaded, you're bound to go back to it. And we started to see that. We started to see the ladder that you needed to climb up. We started to see that the boxes that you need to check off. And we began to see the expectations they had of you. And again, we saw, like, even as far as, like, the fashion and the attire and how you carried yourself and how you talked. And I'm like, oh my God, like, it's the same thing. There's no authenticity here. Even though these people were amazing and loving, and they wanted to give their all, and their intentions were real and true. They wanted to give a different approach to what the church, the mega churches were doing. It was still the same thing, just in a smaller setting now.
Well, like you said, it's people will always go back to, even if they're leaving something. It's like, okay, I know what this institution is. I'm going to leave it to do my own thing. They will always revert back because it's what they know. And it's like human nature to always want to organize and structure something. And seriously, that's where things went wrong. Like, God put, religion or faith, He instilled it into us, into our minds, into our hearts, to have that, to seek Him, to seek being one with Him. I give you that, and I give you the free will to take that or leave that. And then humans turn around and just like, okay, we have the faith. Now let's organize it. Let's get a building, or we'll meet in the house. You, sir, you're going to run it, and you're going to make the snacks, and you're going to do the flyers. And it's like they have to organize everything because they have to, like, be in control of it. And whenever something is controlled, that's when things begin, because right away it's just power. It's man seeks power. I want to be the head of this. I want to be known for this. And that's why people that believe in, like, the chaos theory, like, that's what they want. They want chaos because only through chaos can something actually sprout and grow. But then, you even have people like, we were talking about this yesterday or the other day, like, about, like, rock music or, like, punk music, where it literally was like, that's the idea of it, like, down with mainstream, and we're going to do this, and it's going to sound bad. And then, like, rock and punk became organized, and it's now a freaking category in the Grammys. Like, it's just, humans just want to organize and structure everything. And I truly believe that once something gets to that state or that kind of environment, that's when things just begin to go wrong. And like Jess said, what we saw on a on the big stage of a big church that has thousands of members, we saw it in a home church that has, 20 or 30 people. So because again, like, and it's not to say that the pastors that led that home church were, we just like, oh man, they were quacks or whatever. Like, we don't know what they're talking about. No, I believe they're good people. But again, it's just because of, and they've been doing it for a long time, and they've hit the streets. I guess you can say, like, they really took it to the streets, and like I love their approach a lot better than more of the bigger organized religions,
the
mega churches. But again, it didn't sit right. Some of the things we saw, and like how you had to sound and be and look and all of that.
Well, there was a particular situation, and it was with a couple that we actually ended up being friends with, but they were also up here from the high desert, and we started going, and I guess they hadn't been attending for a few weeks. I'm not sure what was going on, but we started going to the church, and it was very shortly after that we were being asked that maybe we can start a life group, or like I forgot what they called it, but yeah. It was kind of like a life group where on a weekly basis we would meet up here. So that would be, because since they didn't have like church on Wednesdays the way the big churches have, they would have it was like meetups or whatever, yeah. Weekly meetups. So they were thinking maybe we can start something up here in the high desert, because there was a few people that were up here. Well, we'll come to find out that couple had been for months trying to get them to approve them to start that group up here. And like here we come. Yeah. Within weeks of us starting, they wanted to start training us to start that group up here. And I think when that couple found out, they were pretty upset and they were hurt, and that's when I realized, like, that is so unfair. This couple has been committing to, doing this weekly, and they've been doing everything that they thought they were doing everything right to eventually get approved to start this home church up here.
And they were amazing worship leaders, yes, too. Like, they could do it all pretty much.
They're super gifted, but what I think they didn't like was that these two individuals, and I am still friends with this individual, but she's super real. She'll just say it. She doesn't care. She has a dirty ass mouth and she doesn't care. Like, and she has beliefs that didn't align with them. I remember one day I was having lunch with her. She's like, I just want you to know I'm a Democrat. I looked at her. I was like, okay, girl. Like, and
things you're not allowed to say as a Christian.
Exactly. Like, she couldn't say that at the church because they're super conservative, super freaking Republican. And, and she couldn't say that. She couldn't express that part of herself. And I'm like, that is so jacked up. Like, and I knew from that point on, like, oh, this isn't any different. Because again, I don't know if it's because you and I, we just fit the profile better. We maybe dressed better. We were younger. I don't really know what it was, but it was not right. It wasn't right and it wasn't fair. So I knew at that point, like, no, this is the same shit. Where it really is a different freaking toilet and the same shit that we're just seeing. Exactly. And it's over and over and over, and it was it was frustrating to see, because we knew at that point, and again, that's when I was like, well, yeah, because they have the same freaking manual. They have the same thing, the same book that is telling them the same thing, and they're going to end up going back to that, and also it's a culture thing. It's the whole Christian culture thing, where you need to dress a certain way, you need to talk a certain way. We need to make it like the aesthetics of it. It's like you need to fit this whole thing, like this whole profile, in order to be some form of leader, in order to be anything in the church. And especially if you're going to be representing them, then you better look the part, right? Mm-hmm. So,
and I think all this really, led us to, at least for myself, like, I think deconversion really consists of a deconversion from the church. Meaning the deconversion, or the removing yourself from the church, its structure, its regulations and rules, all of that. The whole idea of a pastor and, a council and the elders and all of that. Just really kind of taking yourself from that. Because I don't necessarily think that if someone removes themselves from church, that they're removing themselves from Christianity, the religion. And I think this, after our experiences with the mega church and the experiences with the home church, I think Jess and I really kind of removed ourselves from that. Going to church every Sunday, being involved in all of that stuff. And we were just left with our own personal relationship with God, being in our word, having prayer time, all of that. Now, I feel that this is kind of a time where, we went through months of that, which, different things happened.
Well, we kind of started our own thing where we began hosting like worship nights.
Yeah.
We started to wanting to gather, different like couples and people in our home.
Because even like the couple that Jess was talking about, they were big advocates on that. Like really taking it back to Acts, really bringing it back to just meeting in the home. Even if you don't meet in the home and like have a message or, sing worship songs. It's just to meet weekly or twice a week, three times a week.
Brought over fried chicken and we watched the football game.
Exactly. Let's just get together because that's what it really is about. And that's why again, like we have such a strong love for those people because that is truly what it's about. Like I think we mentioned in the last episode, the human mind and heart, that is what it is longing for, what it needs to survive is community, is people, is interaction, is feeling heard, connection. And that's so true. And that's why, again, we didn't step away from, belief in God or in Jesus or in the Bible because, we still believed in that. But we stepped away from just the idea of church, the idea of, this is what it needs to look like sort of thing. So,
but I think eventually what led us into from now leaving church to now deconstructing and deconverting, what led us to that point was that we found ourselves, even though we weren't in that church setting, whether it was a building or a home, we were still kind of struggling. There was times I remember waking up on a Sunday morning and thinking like, dang, should I just go to church? And I felt like I was kind of going through a detox. And I was like, why am I feeling this shame and this struggle? And then we started to really to dig into, okay, let's go back to the basics. Let's go back to before we began going to church. Like, how did we feel every day? What was our everyday thinking? Because your thinking does change. Now it isn't just, you're thinking about what are you going to do today? You're thinking about like, how can I please God today? How can I serve God today? Everything revolves around Jesus. Everything revolves around, God the Almighty, right? So we began to kind of like, why do we feel so just like, I don't know, what's the word? Like, why do you feel so torn not being in church?
Why is it such a conflict in our heart?
Right. There you go. That's the word. So there was a lot that started to kind of like move within us and, and then we started to see that and this was hard, but we started to see that we were very much like a lot of the people we were running away from. But the one thing that I knew in my heart was that I wanted connection. I wanted friendships and relationships. I wanted like-minded people around me. And even people with different thoughts. Like we just wanted that connection and we missed it a lot. And that's probably one of the reasons why we struggled so much with leaving, because we lost a lot. We lost a lot of people. We lost not just people, but groups and social groups in a place that we can go to. And, we so like, quote unquote, feel safe, but we really obviously weren't safe, so.
And I go like what you said about like, we began to really see like, even this was way before too, but even after leaving, was like how we we were those people. Like, and I think
Yeah.
that's what really began to like kind of like fireworks set off in our heads, where it was like, oh my gosh, like we really are, like, because we would see like these videos where we would kind of laugh, where it's like, why is it everyone that has this like YouTube video or whatever, why do they all have that voice, that kind of like, hi guys, like, dude, it's just so, it's like a church
Who
voice.
talks like that?
Yeah, like who talks like that? Like, you don't. And then they have the, just the way that they dress, and it's like, I could go in my closet. I literally have like a church section where there was like 7 different polos. Like, why do I gotta wear a polo to church? Like, why do I have like these slacks and stuff? Like, I don't know. And then even then, because you can go to a home church where, the pastor there, he was like flip flops and shorts and a Hawaiian shirt. Yeah, that's cool. Like, that's awesome. Like, you should be able to do that. But it just, I don't know. You begin to see that you don't even realize it, but you become that. And it's just, it's, what do you call it? Like, it's human nature or whatever. Like, those you surround yourself, you will become. It always goes back to like our parents. Like, I don't want you hanging out with the wrong crowd. Like, I don't want you hanging out with, like, those are my friends. But it's like, because like we have instinct to know, like, if you hang out with a bunch of people that smoke cigarettes and you don't smoke, eventually you will smoke cigarettes. If you hang around a bunch of Bible thumpers that just have that kind of that way of talking and looking and sounding and thinking, you will.
We are a lot more easily influenced than we want to admit. Like, we really are. It's just, it's just in our nature to follow and to repeat,
And you should.
And
Yeah, and then, but the thing is that it's not saying like don't go hang out with those kind of people, or don't, if you're not Christian, don't go hang out with a bunch of Christians, because then you're going to become Christian. They're going to make you think. No, it's one, you shouldn't hang out with people that are going to push their thoughts and beliefs on you. Just like you shouldn't push your thoughts and beliefs on people. Everyone should respect everyone, and everyone should be able to hang out with whoever, and have a mutual respect, to where just because we don't agree, like, doesn't mean we can't hang out. Like, that's the true people that you do want to hang out with. So,
and I think ultimately that's what we found out, that's that's what we really wanted. We missed the authenticity of people. We missed the realness, and because church makes you believe that you can come and like that church, it has the whole come as you are. We love you and we care about you, but it's like, yeah, come as you are, but change very quickly.
Yeah,
Change
get in line
very
here.
Quickly.
We'll accept you now because you're just so led astray and everything, but let us fix you.
Yeah.
And let us make you dependent on us, and you're only safe within the church community.
Right. And that was one thing. I'm going to take it way back. That was another thing that led us to eventually leaving the mega church that we were going to, which we did go back to. And we did go back.
Of course.
We tried.
Everyone does.
I remember sitting there and I was like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I literally, my whole body was shaking. And I was like, this is not right. It's not right. It doesn't feel right. Like, I literally felt my spirit, like, wanting to lift me up and just freaking throw my ass out of that freaking church. Because I was like, what am I doing here? But anyways, the one thing that really stood out to me, and this was early on, because it didn't just happen to us, it happened to our older son also. But church likes to fix you and then throw you in the front, almost kind of like as a display of like,
you
look
become
what
a
we
walking
did.
billboard for them.
Yeah, and we became so known in the church because we were the couple that like moved up really fast, and not just us, but our oldest. Our oldest was also going through like his own little ministry school, and he was giving sermons, and because he had battled depression and he was battling other things, and it's like we were just this little freaking trophy walking around like, oh, look at this is what the church did. And it was so obvious. And I remember one time with one of the pastors asking me, she was like, can you write your testimony? And I literally didn't know what to write. And I remember thinking in my head, like, my story hasn't even began. Like, I have nothing to share. And I told her, I was like, I don't know. I don't have anything to share other than like everything that we've experienced with our son. And she's like, well, that is your testimony. And I was like, no, that's my son's story. That has nothing to do with us.
Yeah, we became, that's, I think we said those words, like we're identifying with everything that our son has and is going through. But it's not like who, like it's not,
It had nothing to do with us.
yeah. I mean, it did, because
yeah.
that's our son and we were going through it with him.
But it was his journey.
Yeah, and kind of to touch on what you said, it's just like, yeah, it is true about how they really made us feel. And again, I feel guilty or whatever, but it was like, it's my nature to like, I'm someone big on like affirmation and like good job, and the church is very good with like, good job, you're the best, oh my gosh, you should be a pastor and you should do this and you guys are on a fast track and all this. So it was like hard, like, because I did eat it all up. We both did. We loved, and the fact that, getting in front of the marriage ministry or talking in front of people or counseling others, it kind of fed into into our hearts, our need to want to be heard and loved and appreciated. But that's what the church really does. Like Jess said, it kind of like, it finds people like us, and then they're just like, oh yeah, let's feed them all this, and then get them to do what we need them to do. So and that's just, it shouldn't be like that, and but it kind of is, and that's just the kind of repetitive thing that happens with a lot of people that go into church, a lot of couples. So.
Yeah.
But I mean, and that's the whole thing. Again, like, I feel, like I said, multiple parts to this topic here. And that was kind of
narrow it down to just one more, and that's
right. That was kind of our journey leading up to how we stepped away from the church itself. I think, and I know just I would agree. I think we do still want to talk about our just overall beliefs on Christianity, the religion, and what has led us to think and feel how we feel about it today, and how that's still an ongoing kind of process for us. And again, not a topic that's just like, oh, I switched from this brand of coffee to this brand of coffee now. It's like, this is like decisions that affect us every day, every thought that we have, because it's like, what are we really doing? What are we really thinking? Who are we really? But ultimately, and of course we'll go into it more on next episode, ultimately is, I know for me, I believe in God. I just don't think I can believe in how he is depicted, or the thoughts that people have of him, like, through religion. And that goes to say all religion, but like I said, that's a big topic to go into next time. So.
And I feel like I'm a hopeful agnostic. I mean, I find meaning in everything, I really do. But it is, I think, I don't want to say that, my experience was so much worse than my husband. I think I just was more emotionally, like, invested. I was involved in a lot more different groups. So, like, my involvement, I really almost went just full-blown atheist. I really did. I was like, all of this is just crap. All of it is just a bunch of just, nonsense. But, of course, and like I said in the last episode, people's experiences are real, and I had a lot of very real experiences. So I had to kind of, pull it back a little bit and remind myself, like, hey, you're what you went through wasn't just some hocus pocus crap. Like, there was some real moments there, So, like Derick said, this is an ongoing thing. We're not in any way, done with our journey. We're still breathing. We're still experiencing a lot of different things. So, yeah, I mean, we don't know where we'll be a year from now. Maybe we can do, a deconversion update a year from now, and just see where we're at, and where life has taken us, because life has a lot of different turns. I'm in a very unique journey right now with, a whole different, like, I literally went from one side to another side of the spectrum. But, I'm learning a lot of really interesting things, and I'm finding a completely different spiritual connection. And I'm just like, okay, this is where I feel like Spirit's leading me right now. So this is where I'm going to go. And I don't care. And I'm not going to explain or apologize to anyone. If they ask, I'm more than willing to share. But if they don't, I don't need to explain myself. So that's the freedom that I feel like we're enjoying right now. And I've never been in a better place than I am now. Christianity experienced a lot of oppression, and I feel like I'm finally at the other side of it now, and but definitely not done with this journey. Yeah. So thank you guys, seriously, so much if you made it this far. Thank you so much for hearing us out, because this has been super healing for us, for sure.
Yeah, and really quick, like I remember from whoever I heard it from, whatever message I heard it from, where it was like, God will use anyone and everything, for his purpose. But I think God will use anyone. It's all for his
glory. I still have it.
Yeah, tattooed on you. No, I think God, and again, whatever you want to say, God, universe, spirit, it's an energy source. It is a thing. It is an entity. And I think that entity, that force, will use people and things all for the benefit of, moving forward. And like you said, you're in a unique journey, just like I'm in a unique journey, and we're being used by that God, that spirit, for whatever it is. Now, I'm sure you listening and different people will have different thoughts on that statement, or just look at it in maybe a different way.
I obviously even have a different thought on it, completely.
So it's just, and that's kind of what we want to discuss more in the next episode, just kind of our individual thoughts. And you might see that this is kind of where Jess and I, ultimately are in agreement with each other, but how, you can disagree, but yet still, be on the same path. So we want to share that. But like Jess said, thank you guys for listening. And, we hope that we hope again that we didn't say anything that makes you not want to click on that next episode. But we hope that you guys come back, continue to hear our experiences and our journeys through this, and we can share a little bit more with you. So we'll go ahead and get it closed out. You guys have a beautiful day, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Take care.